After the 9/11 Commission famously said, we need our federal agencies to work together. You're talking about synchronization. And now here we are telling them they can't work together. Kathy Hochul also just came out with an order, our governor, saying that we can't have our local agencies working with ICE to determine if they're dangerous illegal immigrants in our communities. They're prohibiting them from using the 287G program. These are all things that are tools for our police to keep our communities.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So, before we jump into the full hearing clip today, I want to address what you just saw in that preview. Because honestly, Representative Claudia Tenney is hitting on a point that way too many politicians in Washington and state capitals are completely ignoring. We live in a world post 9/11 where the biggest lesson we learned as a country was simple: silos kill. If local law enforcement, state agencies, and federal border authorities aren't sharing information, national security collapses. It's that simple. Yet here we are, watching state leaders like New York Governor Kathy Hochul active blocking local law enforcement from working with ICE or sharing DMV data with federal officers. When Representative Tenney brings up election integrity rhetoric in New York's green light laws, she's not just talking politics. She's pointing out a massive, dangerous blind spot in how our government is being run right now. I want to know what you guys think about this before we play the whole clip. Is restricting federal-local police cooperation a total failure of basic government security? Smash that like button if you agree that public safety should come before political posturing. Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our breakdown of these congressional hearings. Now, let's roll the clip and dive into the main reaction.
Ms. Tenney.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Excellent testimony. I just want to say a couple things. Not sure, I'm going to get this out of the way because I don't think we should get into election integrity. I want to talk about 9/11 because I too am a New Yorker. But when Mr. Himes spoke, I have to say about all the, partisanship on the and what did the Democrats do? I think of George Bush's election being stolen. He wasn't a rightful president. Hillary Clinton said her election was stolen. Stacey Abrams said her election was stolen. Katie Porter said her election was stolen. Hakeem Jeffries said President Trump wasn't a legitimate president. Kamala Harris all said the same thing over and over, raising this rhetoric to another level. And as President Joe Biden signed Executive Order 14019, which tasks our federal agencies who should be helping people to engage in voter registration and voter turnout, and those are things that they should stay on their mission, not on those. But I felt like there were just so many things that have happened, unfortunately, on the election integrity issue, and I think it's a really important issue. But I want to ask Mr. Cialufo, did I get that right?
That is correct.
Yes, I'm from Utica, so I know a lot of Italians. I think I'm better at pronunciation than some others on that issue. I wanted to ask you, because I come from New York, as you know, and after having the worst terrorist attack in our nation's history, we're talking about 9/11, how could we be where we are 25 years ago? I have friends, I don't think I know anyone that didn't have friends who died on 9/11. In the towers, a childhood friend died in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. I mean, these are really, this hits home to so many. In New York, in 2019, they passed a law that prohibited interaction and use of, for example, DMV records, Department of Motor Vehicle records, when there was a stop by local police. And this meant if somebody was a would-be terrorist in our state coming across the border, there was no way to check or to confer with federal and state agencies. How would you rate that type of, the so-called green light law? How would you rate that as part of the problem that we have? And after the 9/11 Commission famously said, we need our federal agencies to work together. You're talking about synchronization. And now here we are telling them they can't work together. Kathy Hochul also just came out with an order, our governor, saying that we can't have our local agencies working with ICE to determine if they're dangerous illegal immigrants in our communities. They're prohibiting them from using the 287G program. These are all things that are tools for our police to keep our communities safe, the primary role of our government. Could you address those issues? Because I think they're really important to a state like New York, that's still the fourth largest state, with a northern border, which I and Representative Stefanik represent.
Congresswoman, thank you for the question. I'm not exceedingly well versed on all of the developments here, but I can tell you NYPD is almost an intelligence service in and of itself, and have some of the best women and men in service. So when I look back to 9/11, basically it was NYPD, LAPD, and everyone else. And it's not taking away from the everyone else, because everyone else matters. But all things said and done, yes, we need to do more to be able to get information into the hands of the frontline officers who can stop something before it becomes an issue.
This is really just a common sense issue. I mean, the 9/11 Commission said we need to work together. That's why we had lapses. That's why something like this occurred. And now we have this situation where we can't even have our local police and our county police working with our federal agencies that are providing us with the data and a lot of the intelligence that maybe from this committee. That's what worries me, is that with the intelligence sharing, the ability to know what's happening, and the really just cutting off the data. And I think this is an open door for countries and adversaries and enemies like China, Russia, to come in and actually take advantage of us.
And I would just add, not to sort of move to another top, but at the end of the day, our fusion centers and some of the capabilities that we have, they need to do exponentially more in the cyber environment as well, which is where I spend most of my time focused these days, because you're right. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm not even sure it's about collecting. It's all about the connecting and being able to see the rich picture in terms of what that threat environment is about. I think we have a lot of collection.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Just one last, for General McMaster, great book, by the way. You have a concept in your book called strategic narcissism, and I just wondered if you could maybe comment on that in the intelligence realm of how we should approach, I only have a couple seconds left, approach our foreign policy from that perspective, using intelligence and being more strategic as opposed to more political.
Thank you so much. I think what's most important is to recognize that our adversaries, enemies, rivals, they have aspirations that go far beyond anything that's in reaction to us. Oftentimes we kind of get at each other because we tend to see our engagement, our intervention, or disengagement as being decisive toward achieving a favorable outcome. And so I think what's really important is to pay particular attention to the emotions, the ideology, and the aspirations that drive and constrain our adversaries. For example, in this case, the theocratic military dictatorship in Iran, or the Chinese Communist Party with Xi Jinping on it, or Putinist Russia. We tend to think that, well, that we caused this problem, with like the Putin's argument about the enlargement of NATO. No, actually, Putin has these aspirations to reestablish the Russian Empire, for example. So I think it's important to have this term strategic empathy, to pay particular attention to what drives and constrains the other, rivals, adversaries, and enemies.
Thank you.
All right, let's break down what just happened in that hearing, because Representative Tenney covered some vital ground here. 1. Calling out the hypocrisy on rhetoric. Right out of the gate, she hits back against the idea that questioning elections is purely a one-sided issue. She drops a list of names: Hillary Clinton, Stacey Abrams, Hakeem Jeffries, Kamala Harris, who have spent years questioning the legitimacy of elections when the results didn't go their way. Her point isn't just about scoring political points, it's about exposing the double standard. When the media and political opponents try to act like one side holds a monopoly on election rhetoric, calling out that track record is necessary to keep the discussion honest. Plus, she rightly calls out Executive Order 14019, pointing out that federal agencies should focus strictly on their core missions rather than turning bureaucracy into a targeted voter turnout machine. 2. The 9/11 lesson and New York's border policies. Then she shifts to the core issue, and as a New Yorker who lived through 9/11, her frustration is completely justified. The entire 9/11 Commission's core recommendation was information sharing. Synchronization between local police and federal intelligence agencies was supposed to be the non-negotiable standard going forward. Yet, Tenney points out that New York state laws, like the Green Light Law and Governor Hochul's order restricting local police from working with ICE via 287G, are actively undoing those lessons. Think about how absurd that is. Or a local officer stops someone on a routine traffic pull. Because of state restrictions, they can't check or share critical data with federal law enforcement to see if that individual poses a serious threat. A federal intelligence has the data, but local officers on the ground are stripped of the tools to use it. Tenney is spot on. The primary duty of any government, local, state, or federal, is the safety and security of its citizens. Stripping law enforcement of communication channels just to play sanctuary state politics puts local communities directly at risk. 3. Foreign adversaries and strategic narcissism. When she turns to Frank Silafo and General H.R. McMaster, the discussion elevates even further. Silafo confirms her concerns about intelligence gaps. Intelligence sharing isn't just about collecting data, it's about connecting it. Blocking local police from federal systems creates massive blind spots that foreign adversaries like China and Russia can easily exploit. And when McMaster brings up strategic narcissism, it ties the whole point together. We often fall into the trap of assuming our adversaries only react to what we do, or that internal policies don't have real-world security consequences. But hostile foreign powers and dangerous bad actors are actively looking for vulnerabilities. When state governors build walls between local police and federal agents, they create the exact national security gaps our rivals want to leverage. Final thoughts. Claudia Tenney didn't let this hearing turn into standard political noise. She brought it back to basic common sense. Communication keeps people safe. Blocking ICE and federal agencies from working with local police isn't policy progress. It's a massive security hazard. What did you guys think of her exchange with McMaster and Silafo? Let me know down in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.